right, everyone can hear me okay? Wait for the room to fill in a little bit. I was just laughing with the team over here. I said, Junior Brinkers is trying to sell me on DPW 2029. I haven't even done my speech yet. Jeez, I'm excited to be here though, in New York for the first time. I've had a chance to be in Amsterdam a few times, but this is our first trip to New York, so excited to see you all. Pleasure to be in front of this great audience and talk about this very hot topic that our friend Eloise Epstein touched on this morning about the CLM being dead. At least dead for procurement, right? It's probably not dead for our friends in legal yet, but there's no doubt it's been dead for procurement for a long time. So we're going to talk about how AI is going to give procurement more power in the organization, how the CFO is going to start waking up, start investing in procurement finally, start acting and stop talking, because we've been talking about it for a long time, but I think CFOs are finally going to put their money where their mouth is. It's exciting for all of us, right? So let's jump in here. I talk about this every single day, so it feels super repetitive for me and the Terzo team probably, but CLMs were never, ever, 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 ever built for procurement. Never. Just because their website says procurement and they have a tab for use cases around procurement doesn't mean it was built for procurement. All the solutions in the market, the big ones everyone knows, I won't say any names because I want to be polite today, but they're all built by legal, for legal. And it's been the case for a very long time. These are legal first systems. These were systems that were built back in 2005 when I was starting my career at Oracle for workflow, for drafting, for approvals, and for really basic, tasks that were done by legal. These were not built for finance or procurement. It's cutting out. Is this good? Okay. Can I take this little goofy headset off then? So when we talk about CLMs that are in the market right now, right, they've been in the market for a very long time, and I think you all have probably been through this and have felt the pain of having a glorified repository, and that's why most of you probably use SharePoint or OneDrive, because it's easier than using an old school legacy CLM. So why does everyone and all these smart people and these great companies do CLM RFPs or CLM RFIs? I believe, and I think a lot of you probably agree with me, the reason why you're doing it is because Gartner says that's the category. And Forrester probably says CLM is the category. That's why you should do a CLM RFP, because that's our category. Well, the guidance is wrong. It's dead wrong. And when I was at Microsoft, before I started Terzo, we were the largest iCertis customer in the world. The largest. They still are. No one in procurement or finance is using iCertis at Microsoft. So Gartner and Forrester and all the other third-party reference companies need to wake up and create a new category, probably contract intelligence and spend intelligence or contract analytics or something that's involving the procurement function, because procurement teams need financial data to do their jobs. You're being asked to manage billions of dollars, thousands of suppliers, so many different documents, invoices, POs, MSAs, change orders, SOWs, and Gartner's telling you to go use these solutions right here. We all know they don't work. They haven't worked since day one, and they're definitely not working in 2025 and onward. Legacy systems that don't have any AI capabilities, that are not built for your job. So we need to rethink the entire process, and we need to think about all the tools and platforms we're going to use to hit the KPIs that you all have, which a lot of it is around cost optimization, monitoring risk and compliance, and things that are actually going to help the business move forward. The other challenge that we have is that the P2Ps that you all use, which have also been around for a very long time. I was just laughing, earlier about, Ariba's been around since 2002, 2003. Right? It was a great solution back then. Different challenges. Today, a whole new host of challenges arise in the procurement world, especially around obligations. But the P2Ps, they're glorified repositories too. You upload your documents to Ariba CLM or Coupa CLM, and what are you going to do with it? It's the same thing as SharePoint. It's not much different than SharePoint, right? I mean, it's the same exact thing. You have no extraction, you have no deep analytics, you have no reporting, you have terrible search. It's all manual effort. You guys are spending so much time doing manual work with these systems, and these systems are very expensive. That's the problem, right? They're not cheap solutions. These are enterprise-wide applications, cost millions of dollars to implement, millions of dollars to maintain, and they're static repositories. Again, that's why everyone goes back to SharePoint, OneDrive, Box, all those type of solutions. It's easier and it's cheaper, right? So one of the things that we've constantly seen, I've seen throughout my career, because I worked at Oracle, I worked at IBM, I worked at Microsoft, I spent a lot of time with you all. That's how I knew about this problem, because I got complaints every single day from customers like you about this problem. That's why we went off to go build Terzo. But there's no visibility into the pricing, the inventory, and all these obligations. You have so many obligations across this complex ecosystem. It's very, very complicated to manage, especially across thousands of suppliers, let alone if you're just going to manage the tier ones. It's still a lot of work. So how are you going to do that if you don't have a data platform and you're applying, and you're basically hoping you get approval from legal? That is not the way that procurement should be working, right? And it's very, very frustrating for many of you, as I've heard the last 5 years, to have to get approval from legal to do your job. Legal doesn't care about cost savings. We love our lawyers. I have many GCs in-house at Terzo. They don't care about cost savings. They care about risk and compliance and making sure that, you know, we're not signing risky contracts. They're not worried about the dollars. They're not worried about the inventory or our rate cards or anything we're purchasing and delivery times and warranty. When you talk about physical supply chain, right, and we work across physical supply chain, people actually shipping physical goods, you have a lot of obligations there, and I can tell you that there's a huge gap with all the systems in place today. The P2Ps don't solve it. The CLMs certainly don't solve it. So everyone goes back to our good old Microsoft Office suite, which is actually the most reliable: spreadsheets, SharePoint, OneDrive, email. It's where everyone lives. And I don't blame you. I would live there too. And you know, I have a lot of PTSD as well, because even as the CEO of the company, we have lawyers who have said, oh, we might want to use a CLM. I said, for what? You work in Word all day. Why do you need a CLM? You're always in Microsoft Word. You're going to be in Word no matter what. You go from Word to email, Word to email. It's a culture thing. So it's not even about the technology. It's about the culture of being able to actually use technology. And lawyers don't love sharing. They went to law school. They're smarter than all of us. They don't want to share, which makes sense. They want to work on their own on the desktop. So that's another reason why you need a separate data platform, because they don't even want to collaborate. That's their behavior. We've seen this across many, many different industries. The good news, 2025, halfway over already, crazy. World's in a crazy place, as you all know. You got tariffs every other day. You got news coming out all over about, you know, trade, and a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, a lot of nonsense, unfortunately, you all have to deal with. And there's real business implications. There's real cost implications there with all this stuff happening, and big dollars. And I think that leadership is finally waking up. Most of you have already been woken up, but I think leadership, CFOs, COOs, CEOs, the board, people who are actually making decisions are waking up and realizing, wow, we want these teams to manage billions of dollars and do all this work, but we have to give them new tools. We have to give them new platforms. We have to make investments. There hasn't been big investments. And I always laugh with our friends in sales. And I think there's a few people in here who have done sales in the past and then switched the sides of the table over to procurement. If you're in sales at any company, especially these companies over here, and you have a $2 million quota, you can go to your CFO and say, hey, I need $200,000 to go buy a sales intelligence tool so I can get more leads and more pipeline. And you know what the CFO is going to say? Go ahead. Here's $200,000 for the sales team to go buy whatever tool you want. But if you're in procurement and you manage $10 billion a year of spend and you want a new tool, they say, excuse me, you better submit a business case. How does that work? To me, that's bullshit. I'm sorry, but that's complete bullshit. And when I talk to these CFOs behind closed doors at dinners, like we're gonna have dinner tonight, we'll talk to some executives, I tell them right to their face, how do you expect your team to manage billions of dollars per year of supplier commitments, but you don't give them any money to invest in technology? That's crazy. It's backwards. It's wrong. Things got to change. And procurement is a strategic finance function. That's why it exists. It's a financial function. Oftentimes, you could be working for the CFO, as many of you do. Maybe you're working for the COO, depending on the org structure. But regardless, procurement was created to govern financial obligations, control spend, and make sure we're driving the business forward with strategic relationships. And it's about time that the investment in the tools and the platform catches up to that. I think that's very important for you all. And I've been in countless meetings, especially the last 6 months, in 2025, about business cases. CFO wants to know why procurement wants to invest in technology. Well, it's very obvious why. You have a huge job. You don't have a lot of resources to do it. You have a small team. Team's probably getting even smaller now because CFOs and the board are like, wait a second, there's all this AI out there now. Apparently AI can do everything. We don't need people anymore. We got all these agents and agent force and agentic this, agentic that. Nonsense buzzwords all the time, right? Why do we need people to manage $20 billion? And our team here knows, we talk to customers who are managing 50 billion, 60 billion, 70 billion a year of spend. They have a tiny team. It's crazy. These leadership teams need to wake up. And I think that we all need to be more aggressive in explaining to them why they need to wake up, why it's important to invest, what those business impacts and those outcomes are, right? Whether it's cost savings, whether it's risk mitigation, whether it's preparing for things like audits. Audits can catch a lot of people off guard, waste a lot of dollars. So we need to do a better job as a community explaining to the CFO and leadership why they need to invest, because you're a strategic part of their organization. And I think that message is starting to resonate. It seems like that, 2025. But we got to continue to push that narrative, as it's the truth. I love this slide. I love this slide because it's true. And 90% of the world's information is hidden in PDFs. Everyone talks about this. I think the Adobe CEO gave a keynote on this. Of course, everything's in their system with the PDFs. But if you look at any organization in any country, any industry, all their financial information, other than the stuff in the GL that's historicals, is in a PDF. And where are the PDFs? Scattered across 20, 30, 40 different repositories, not centralized by department. No one knows. Ed left the company, it's on a C drive. Mike left, it's in OneDrive. Billy left, it's in G drive. Kathy put it in Slack. Peter put it in Microsoft Teams. It's scattered everywhere. And that's the reality, the challenge that we all have is that the important information, whether it's legal information, whether it's compliance information, whether it's spend commitments or quantities and pricing, all of that is locked into a nasty PDF on someone's template. If you're lucky, it's on your template, but probably on their template if it's a big vendor. Very hard to go through that with Control F. Very manual, very slow. I heard from a lot of really bright procurement consultants that 40% of your day is spent going through this crap. 40% of your day is spent looking for data. How are you supposed to do your job? It's super hard to do your job when you're constantly looking for data, emailing people, messaging people on Teams. Hey, do you have this latest version of the contract? And the answer is usually, yeah, I'll get back to you soon. Takes a long time to get the data. But this is a global problem. Everyone knows about it now. It's out front and center. Now we need to attack it. We need investment. It always starts with people. Then we create the process. Then we bring in the technology last. But it's a huge opportunity for all of us to get better when we can get the precious data out of these documents. AI is everyone's promised AI is going to do magic. The reality is we're not there yet, in my opinion. I've been working in the AI industry since 2013 at IBM Watson. We were trying to sell AI in 2013, believe it or not. Looked really silly now that I think about it. We were pitching AI in meetings with people like you, and it wasn't even near production, but we've been talking about it for a long time. But I think that we're finally at the place after all these LLMs came out where we can really move the needle with accurate data, which is number one important thing, is getting accurate data, and being able to do important things out of those PDFs like data extraction, basic contract analytics and reporting, the inventory intelligence, which some people may not understand that, but it's all the products, services that you're paying for. It's being able to see it down to the SKU level, which is really important, and being able to compare contracts when you're doing things like renewals and you're renegotiating. You need this data at your fingertips. And you have a lot of work and a lot of volume. So the faster you get the data, smarter decisions you can make, it's going to ultimately impact the bottom line. You're going to drive a lot of cost savings. You're also going to make the business a lot better performing when you're able to do that. Where do you start, right? You always have to start with an accurate data foundation. Data foundation, bringing all those nasty PDFs into a structured format. And that takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time. Definitely takes people. Software is not going to do it all because you have the data siloed in so many different places, but you got to create that data foundation first and foremost. And I can tell you that it's on procurement to do it. IT's not going to do it. They don't need to do it. They have other projects that are happening. They're playing around and having fun with other stuff. This is your job. And legal certainly doesn't care about this either. It's also not their job. They don't get comped on it. They make $500K a year whether they do, nothing, or they don't even have to get out of bed. They're getting paid base salaries. They have no incentive to do this. That's the truth, right? Lawyers get mad, but that's true. Our lawyers will even agree with that, right? They're not comped on this, not part of their KPIs. So you need to all build a data foundation. It's a lot of work. It takes time. But that's the very beginning. It's building a very accurate, trustworthy data foundation. And then you can do a lot of things off of that data foundation. Then you can create a lot of other applications off the data. But once the data is accurate, structured, centralized, that is where you can bring a lot of these applications to life and do a lot of fun stuff with it. The modern CPO, and if you're all here today, I consider you modern CPOs. DPW does a great job bringing these people in here. It's a great event, great organization, a lot of wonderful people. And what you all need is a CPO command center where it ties all your applications together. That is my opinion. I feel very confident about this, but these are just basic applications you're already using with a lot of important data in there already. All this data needs to be aggregated, and there needs to be analytics, search, sort, reporting on top of this data. And some organizations that are moving fast, you can throw Gen AI on top of this, but you need all these applications tied together ultimately as part of that data foundation. So you look at the ERP, of course, with the GL data. You look at the P2P with your invoices and POs. You got your CLM repository still. There's some good data in there. That's fine. You got applications like ServiceNow, a lot of maybe inventory or ITSM data in there. And of course, you have things like Workday. Maybe there's some precious data in Workday too. But building that data foundation with these systems is very important as part of that strategy to getting that AI-ready data layer. And you're going to hear that word a lot, AI-ready data layer. Us, tech people are going to be talking about that all the time. Because that's the only way AI can be accurate, is if you have a really structured, clean data layer. So 63% of CPOs are increasing investment in analytics and intelligence tools, but the spend on CLMs is flat. It's flat. It's been flat for a long time. So people are realizing that's not a growth industry. That's not a growth sector, the CLM. Everyone's looking for data and analytics. Things are changing. They're changing quickly. But that's a good thing for you all. I'm excited about this. What the future looks like? Just what I said. Unifying spend and contracts together. That is the key. Bringing together the invoices, the POs, the GL with all your contract commitments. That's step one. If you do that, you'll be in a great position. Having the trustworthy, accurate data as well. It's also very important to make sure that data is accurate so you can trust it to make decisions. And then you're going to use this as a weapon. Use this as a weapon to renegotiate, to cut costs, to prepare for audits, to do reporting 10 times faster. It's going to be a beautiful thing. Don't wait for permission. Lead the revolution. I have this Maverick symbol up here because we like to laugh at Terzo. Our customers, they like to innovate quickly. They're Mavericks. They go to the CFO and say, I need this. I don't want this. I need this. And if you don't give this to me, I'm leaving the company and I'm going to go work for someone who will give it to me. That's the type of attitude they have. They lead the revolution. They don't ask for permission. They show up and tell people what they need. And that's what you all need to do. And I think it's going to be very important for you to continue to talk through this with your teams, bring this to leadership, create the business case, but explain to them why it's so important for you to have your own data platform and why you need it for the business for the future. Last but not least, you got this. Looking forward to seeing you all. Thank you for your time. Enjoy New York.